So Saturday's first Elite Eight game, it was played here in New York, about a mile behind where I'm sitting right now. Final score, Florida Atlantic 79, Kansas State 76. Marquise Nowell had the ball in a one-possession game with less than 10 seconds to go, and then he passed it, and he never got it back. And Kansas State didn't even get a shot off on that final possession. David, how surprised are you that Marquise Nowell gave that ball up on that final possession?
Yeah, I'm surprised, and we can boil it down to that single play if you want to, and that's fair because Marquise Nowell should have taken the last shot for Kansas State. They did not have a timeout, so that's why the play, I think, was a little jumbled up. But to me, that game comes down to Keontae Johnson only playing 18 minutes due to foul trouble. He finished with just 9 points. He was their leading scorer all season, which might surprise some people who have really only tuned into Kansas State here down the stretch, because it just appears from watching them over the last couple of weeks as if Marquise Nowell is the dude. There has been another dude, though, for Kansas State throughout that season. It was Keontae Johnson, and he got going a little bit early in the second half, but then he started picking up more fouls, and he couldn't play for extended periods of time. He sat the final 12 minutes of the first half as well. When he exited the game in the first half, the game was tied, and then Florida Atlantic took a 4-point lead into the break. And you wonder, would that have been the case if Keontae Johnson had played the final 12 minutes of the first half? So another example, though, is that, hey, if he hadn't fouled out, there would have been another option for Marquise Nowell on that final play. Instead of having to give the ball off to Ish Massoud, he would have been giving the ball off to Keontae Johnson, who you would rather have the ball in his hands in that moment. So that, to me, was the biggest story of the game itself. But yeah, you would have liked to have seen Marquise Nowell take the final shot.
Yeah, Ish Massoud had made some big shots this season, made some big shots in this tournament. I don't have a problem with him, given that Marquise was little and he had, it was clogged up a little bit. It wasn't like he had a clean look and passed it up. He was pushed way out, and he was going to have to make a play to get a shot. So I don't have a problem with it, generally speaking. But ultimately, you are the star of this team. You've been the star of this tournament. You are in Madison Square Garden. You only get this shot one time. Take it. And I'll live with whatever. I'll live with a bad shot from you, but I want a shot from you in this moment, because he was playing well. He was 8 of 21 from the field, 5 of 11 from 3, 9 of 10 from the free throw line, 30 points, 12 assists, 5 steals, 5 of 11 from 3. I would have liked to have seen a 12th 3-point attempt. Whatever happens with it, happens with it. But when Kansas State is coming up the court in that moment, in that possession, I was certain he was going to take the shot, and I was shocked when he gave the ball up. By the way, according to Jared Burson, who is the king of ESPN Stats and Info, there have only been 3 games in the NCAA tournament since steals became an official stat in 1986 where somebody has scored 20-plus points, had 10-plus assists, and 5-plus steals. And Marquise Nowell has 2 of the 3. They came this weekend. Marquise Nowell did it on Thursday. He did it on Saturday. And the only other time it's been done, again, since steals became an official stat in 1986, Anderson Hunt at UNLV in 1990. So that speaks to what kind of dominant performer he was in this event. And when I turn in my CBS Sports All-America ballot on Monday, I think Marquise Nowell is going to be on my first team. I think I will vote Marquise Nowell first team All-American. We've explained it before. One of the reasons we wait later than most to do All-American teams and National Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Freshman of the Year, all that stuff, is to have as much data as possible, or at least more data than we have at the end of the regular season or at the end of the conference tournaments, because sometimes guys who are fringe All-Americans or third-team All-Americans actually do things in this tournament that when you look back on a season, they're going to be the guys you remember, and they're going to be the ones who are the stories. And if you vote at the end of the regular season, you miss out on some of that stuff. Most famously, Kemba Walker in UConn's national championship year. So would I have voted Marquise Nowell a first-team All-American 3 weeks ago? Probably not. I would have probably had him the third team, something like that. I think based on what he and his team did in this tournament, I'll vote Marquise Nowell first team All-American when I turn in my ballot on Monday.
Yeah, the more data you have to sort through, the better. Isn't that right, Gary?
That's what I learned over at barttorvik.com.
Yeah, I also didn't realize until Nada had the stat broadcast pulled up that FAU committed 22 turnovers. I guess in the back of my mind, I knew that they committed a bunch of turnovers, but they committed 22 turnovers, leading to 30 Kansas State points and still managed to win this game. I think that's what's so impressive about FAU. You keep looking for a flukish result or a simple explanation or some sort of individual performance that you can kind of hang your hat on and say, oh, well, that's why Florida Atlantic is still around in this tournament, or that's why Florida Atlantic beat Tennessee, beat Kansas State, beat Memphis. When in reality, they're just rock solid all the way through. I mean, they had 4 players in double figures tonight. The guy who averages the 9th most minutes on that Florida Atlantic team provided them with 7 points tonight. And you just go up and down. Kansas State actually made more 3-pointers tonight than Florida Atlantic did. Yet they still somehow managed to win. And a lot of it comes down to defense. I mean, these guys defend like maniacs. Kansas State went over about 7 minutes without a bucket late in the second half of this game in terms of a basket from the field. So there's just nothing flukish. There's nothing, I don't know, overly, they're just legit. They're a solid all-around team. They're super deep, and they got a lot of really good players.
Usually when not a team like Florida Atlantic, but a Conference USA team gets to this level, or any team from a league like Conference USA gets to this point, to an Elite Eight game against a power conference school, you look at it and you go, okay, well, they're going to really have to play well to win. Or the other team's going to really have to play poorly to lose. Maybe it'll take a combination of those things. And one of the points I made on CBS Sports Network earlier in the day is that, and the point spread highlighted this. It's not like it's an enlightening thought. It's just something I thought worth noting. Florida Atlantic didn't have to play above its heads to win this game. Florida Atlantic could go to the Final Four just being who it is. Just who you are is good enough to do this. And they weren't, that wasn't their sharpest performance of the tournament. Certainly wasn't their sharpest performance of the season, but they were still able to beat a Kansas State team that has been ranked in the top 15 much of this season and advance to the Final Four. It was really impressive stuff. And when they go to the Final Four, they're not going to be the favorite there. UConn's going to be the favorite there. And UConn will be, I think, most people's pick. But Florida Atlantic can win a national championship. I didn't believe Loyola Chicago could go to the Final Four and win 2 more games. I did not believe VCU could go to the Final Four and win 2 more games. I didn't think George Mason was going to the Final Four and winning 2 more games. I'm not predicting that Florida Atlantic is going to go to the Final Four and win 2 more games, but I'm telling you it's possible. They can do it.
Their first opponent's going to be either San Diego State or Creighton, a number 5 seed and a number 6 seed playing on Sunday for a spot in the Final Four. And then, it's possible that their national title game opponent potentially would be a number 5 seed in Miami, a team that's been up and down, obviously up right now, but has had some pretty low lows as well too. So it is possible. I mean, I think Texas and UConn are playing so well right now that it's hard to theorize what FAU beating one of those teams would really look like. But at this point, you have to acknowledge that it's possible because of how well they played. I thought in the first half in particular, they really exploited a mismatch inside. They got the ball into Vlad Golden. Kansas State's bigs got into some foul trouble there. Kansas State plays at a really fast tempo. They don't have a deep bench. That sets you up for foul trouble. And it ended up being something that really hurt him in this game, beyond just Keontae Johnson fouling out. And Vlad Golden from Nalchik, Russia, ends up playing a key part in the Final Four. Isn't that just wild? A dude from Russia ends up playing a key role and taking Florida Atlantic to the Final Four. It makes you wonder, is there some kid from Vermont over in Eastern Europe, taking a water polo team deep in some amateur tournament that we don't know anything about, that the media over there covers? I don't know. It's just crazy to think about that element of this. This kid starts at Texas Tech, and doesn't even play, and now all of a sudden he's a key piece of what FAU is doing here, getting all the way to Houston.
And I saw somebody earlier tweet an aerial view of Florida Atlantic's campus, which is just amazing. It's in Boca. And somebody was like, you got to get this to every high-level dude who's in the transfer portal. A name, image, and likeness deal, and that campus is pretty attractive given what's going on right now. So all of this is good stuff for the university, for the basketball program. And one last thing on Florida Atlantic before we move on to what UConn did to Gonzaga. Let me ask you a question. Can you tell me why Florida Atlantic's Dusty May, at this point, shouldn't be the CBS Sports National Coach of the Year?
Well, I've been thinking about that actually, because we've got to submit that. What'd you say, was it noon on Monday? Or?
I mean, I'm going to wait for the if I'm going to wait for 2 Elite Eight games, I'm going to wait for the other 2 Elite Eight games just to. I don't know how much my ballot can change at this point, but I'll turn mine in on Monday. Yeah. And when I turn mine in on Monday, and I recognize there's somebody listening right now saying, "Hold up, buddy." At one point, you said Jerome Tang should be National Coach of the Year. And then you said Bill Self should be National Coach of the Year. And then you said Shaka Smart should be National Coach of the Year. I think at some point I probably also said Purdue's Matt Painter should be National Coach of the Year. I think there's at least 3 or 4 guys at some point in the season I've said if I were voting right now, that guy would be my National Coach of the Year. And so this is just a new version of that. Now I actually do have to vote. And I think when I submit my ballot now, it's Dusty May.
Yeah.
Because because like, what do we value in Coach of the Year candidates? What usually matters? It's typically excellence and or dramatically overachieving relative to expectations. That's how you end up on a Coach of the Year ballot. You either were just excellent and worthy of all the accolades, or you were really good when people thought you weren't going to be very good. And so you're the classic overachiever that gets Coach of the Year votes.
Well, it helps his case. It helps his case that he beat the other most viable candidate head to head in the Elite Eight.
Part of it.
Yeah, I mean, Jerome Tang felt like the natural choice. He still is a logical choice for National Coach of the Year. But how do you not pick Dusty May when he just won head to head? So it's awkward, because when you do these All-American ballots and you do Player of the Year, what weight do you give, a ton of success from a mid-major program, a mid-major player, a mid-major coach? I do think we weight these awards heavily towards teams from power conference programs or other traditional powers like a Gonzaga. But in this case, Florida Atlantic has become that this season. They're playing in the Final Four now. So I lean towards Dusty May, but I'm getting some affirmation from you, which I kind of appreciate, because, you don't want to be the only guy who votes for somebody. I don't know. The head-to-head thing is huge for me, because in my mind, it was between the two of them, and Dusty May beat Jerome Tang tonight.
When it comes to voting for a National Coach of the Year, again, you value excellence and or a person dramatically overachieving relative to expectations, and Dusty May checks both of those boxes. Florida Atlantic was picked 5th in the preseason CUSA poll. 3 different teams got first place votes. Florida Atlantic did not, but the Owls won Conference USA outright by multiple games. Then they won the CUSA tournament, and now they're in the Final Four with a 35-3 record. Do you like excellence? That's excellence. Do you like overachieving? That's overachieving. 2 weeks ago, Dusty May not have made my top 3 Coach of the Year candidates, but based on all of the data we now have about him and what he's done to this point in the season, Dusty May is going to be my National Coach of the Year.
Though, if we're going to go based off head-to-head, like I was saying, we also have to consider Kermit Davis, now fired at Ole Miss. We have to consider Andy Kennedy from UAB and Nick McDevitt, right, at MTSU. Yes. The only 3 coaches to beat Dusty May this season. In that wild. How did Ole Miss beat Florida Atlantic? I know it was November, but that's a head scratcher there.
Right. But like, and that loss is among the reasons it took Florida Atlantic longer than it otherwise would have to crack the Associated Press top 25 poll, or even the CBS Sports top 25 and 1, but they eventually cracked both. And now I believe the KenPom numbers have updated. Florida Atlantic is up to 17th at KenPom. So this is a legitimate basketball team. It's an incredible story and an unlikely story, but this is a legitimate basketball team with I think realistic national championship hopes. Again, with most of those so-called mid-majors that have advanced to the Final Four, I gave them almost no shot to win another game, much less two more. I mean, it's one of the simplest things anybody's ever said about the Final Four as it pertains to traditional Cinderellas. But the thing that makes winning the national championship very, very difficult, even if you get to the Final Four, is because once you get there, you still got to beat two good teams. And they're probably usually two teams better than you. And that's hard to do. But whatever teams are going to be in the Final Four with Florida Atlantic, I think we outside of maybe UConn, which can obviously be physically and from a talent perspective, overwhelming for opponents. I wouldn't put anybody else as a big favorite over Florida Atlantic.